One of the things I love most about how I cover anime is giving every single show a shot, and every now and then discovering those hidden gems, the shows that nobody is watching, the show that has like probably 10,000 people registering on MAL, those shows that have like 6.5 rating on MAL, the shows that nobody wants to give a shot, and discovering those hidden gems, those shows that just have something in it that makes it valuable that otherwise everybody's just going to completely overlook. And Tasokare Hotel is seemingly that show of the winter 2025 anime season. This show so far has grabbed my attention and easily given me the biggest WTF moment of this season. Like, I had a episode of this show where I said, that's f***ed up. Like, no matter how you cut it, that was effed up. Like, whatever just happened there, my gosh. But yeah, it kind of gives me a sense of something like Death Parade. Now, yes, not to the caliber of Death Parade. Death Parade is literally like a legendary show. Like, that show is up there as one of my favorite anime of all time. But it has a feeling of that idea of that space between life and death, where somebody's future, their hopes of ever kind of living again and going back to the world of living or going off into the void is all in question. It has me hooked. I'm completely hooked, and I want to tell people about it. So that's what we're going to do today. For those that don't know what Tasokare Hotel is, because obviously, again, not many people are watching it, it opens up with a girl named Neko. Now, when it opens up, she has no clue who she is. She doesn't even have a face. And she's wandering around this desolate area until eventually she comes to a hotel. She walks in the hotel and she's greeted by the manager, who is a dude with a flaming head, before she's quickly kind of registered in and she goes off to her room. Now, that's where we find out what the Tasokare Hotel is. This is a hotel that's between the living and the dead. It's kind of like the River Styx kind of idea. And whoever comes there is registered in, they have no appearance, they have no memories, and then when they go to their room, the hotel like designs the room around their memories. And they can look around the room, look at different objects that have some sort of special meaning to their own memories, and they're slowly over time going to discover who they are, regain their face, and eventually, yes, discover what happened to them. Find out if they're dead or not. That's the big massive question mark there. So when Neko, our main character, walks in there, she quickly finds out who she is. She learns that she really loves idols. And then, yes, she's trying to figure out if she's dead or not. But that's the point in which she can't really return to living yet. She has to figure out if she's dead or not. And during this time, as she's trying to figure out if she's dead or not, she's meeting the other members of the actual hotel, the different staff members that, yes, are comprised of a lot of people that are still trying to figure out if they're dead or not, until eventually, yes, she decides that she wants to become a member of the hotel. She likes to kind of dig into people's memories and help them figure out who they are and just help them with their problems. And this kind of precedes us kind of meeting different individuals that come into the hotel. She will help them, guide them to their room, figure out their name, figure out if they're dead or not, until eventually, yes, a big old massive wrench is thrown into the mix, where we have the inclusion of a guy that claims to be a detective because he's got a lot of different detective stuff in his room. But in actuality, what Neko finds out very quickly and discovers, he's actually a murderer. And this guy won't leave the hotel, and he's causing a lot of problems for the hotel. And that's where we discover some more darker sides of the hotel itself, and the idea that if you kill somebody in the hotel, you'll be sent off to hell. You won't actually get to go back to the world of living. Stuff like that. So yes, Tasokare Hotel, like I said before, I am really loving the concept of this show. Now, I'll be truthful. This show doesn't really have an initial real grab. I did really like Neko's character. Neko is almost a mischievous person. She's got a little bit of a catness to her, hence her name. She's a very catty kind of person. And we find out through a lot of insights into her past that she's kind of lived in a life that has a lot of like bad things happen around her. We get a little brief shot that, yes, apparently one of her teachers has done something horrible to one of the students. We have a cut forward and we find out that one of her classmates has been hit by a car or died from a car accident. Stuff like that. This girl has had, misfortune around her for a long time. And it does seem, like I said before, she's really into idols. Even so much so that one of the other staff members she's super into. She likes this Rudy girl because she's super cute. I'm kind of wondering if she'll end up being one of those idols. Of course, there's a hint that I wonder if possibly Neko herself is possibly one of these idols. But anyways, it was kind of standard fare. Every episode, we'd introduce somebody. We had like this guy that was gambling, into gambling debt and whatnot. He discovers who he is, and then at some point, we find out that yes, apparently he was stealing all the money from his mother, and he was afraid of the phone calls from his mother. At which point, we find out how he was dying was that yes, he got attacked by the mob. They beat him to death, and then they buried him alive. And so yes, when he discovers this, he actually relives it, and so he's buried inside of his room, and they have to unbury him and then send him back off to living to see if he can survive. that kind of stuff. It's really cool in the idea that most cases, they're not actually dead. They're actually people that are kind of stuck at that point of nearly dying, and they could possibly still survive. They just have to figure out who they are. It's almost like they're in a state of unconsciousness, and that's when they arrive in this hotel. Now, the point in which the show grabbed me, now this is the point where, yes, I got my what the moment. I got my that was screwed up moment, which is when, again, the detective shows up. I think the point in which Masaki, who is the murderer, when he first shows up, that's where things really get twisted for this show. Yes, the initial introduction of him is that, yes, he's a detective, and then she figures out, no, these are pictures of your victims. You're actually a murderer. He reveals to Neko, through everybody else, that, yes, if you kill somebody in this hotel, you'll go to hell. And so Masaki doesn't want to do that. He ends up getting stopped, but he doesn't want to do that. But he's not leaving, and it's not like the hotel can tell him to leave. They can't push him out. They do warn him that if you stay here too long, you will die, which is sort of the idea of somebody being unconscious in the living and they never, wake up. They'll probably eventually die away. But Masaki wants to break things. There's an implying that he is afraid of going back to the world of the living without getting rid of the people that now know about his secret. Now, when you return to the land of the living, you're supposed to forget everything in the hotel itself, but there is some rare cases where you can remember things. And he's afraid of, like, Neko going back to the world of the living and then, yes, getting him arrested for all of his murders, because she knows everything. She's seen his memories in his room. So he's trying to break things. And we see that through one of the most messed up stories in this show so far, which is Nagumo and Kyo. Now, these two were friends. When they first arrive at the hotel, they're there together. They quickly figure out who they are. They come back to each other. They're so happy. They're part of the kendo club together. We find out that there's a little bit of issue in the idea that Nagumo doesn't want to take kendo seriously, whereas her friend is super into it. And that's mainly because Nagumo doesn't want to create a rift in their friendship. When she beat him at kendo, they started arguing a lot. Yes, Kyo is jealous. And so we find out over time how they died. And that's because they were having an argument in the storage room and some stuff fell on them. Now, this is where Masaki comes in the picture. And this is where things really start to break and it starts to get really twisted. In the idea that this guy who's a murderer, who's still staying in the hotel, he gets Nagumo off to the side. Because they're still trying to piece together memories, things are still kind of fuzzy. And so he actually talks Nagumo into believing that Kyoe was so jealous, she killed her. And the only way that she will be able to be resurrected, the only way that she could actually undo her dying, because Kyo is still alive, is she has to kill Kyo. And so Nagumo believes this. Again, she's in a state where she's believing that she's dead. And the only way she can undo this is to kill the person that was jealous of me, that killed me. And so she goes out there and attacks her. And it gets really twisted because, again, if you kill somebody in the hotel, you go to hell. But she doesn't know this. She believes that if she kills this person that was so jealous of her, she'll be able to undo this death. So she goes out there and attacks Kyo. Kyo panics, believes that she's actually at fault, and she ends up allowing Nagumo to kill her, actually going so far as to taking the blade and stabbing herself, thus dying. But the system believes that Nagumo killed her because he already struck her once. She was going to bleed out. And Nagumo, in a panic and in a state of like pure franticness, the idea that she just killed her friend, runs out of the hotel and gets sucked up into hell. I'm like, that was so effed up. It's just such an effed up story. Again, they have no idea what happened to them. They're just children. These are two high schoolers. They're just children. But their minds were so like in a haze of their memories, they accepted what he told them. He accepted what they said, and they were in a panic state. And she kills her friend, or helps kill her friend, and then runs off and goes into hell. All because this dude manipulated them. And it's like, this isn't a really just system. Like, the system just accepted what happened in the hotel, but not the circumstances. And it gives that sense of like, this is really screwed up. Like, this is a system that's kind of screwed up, and just tragedy befell them. This one girl, Kia, the one that got stabbed, she's basically disappears. We don't even know what happened to her. It kind of implies the idea that she's just dead. And then Nagumo over here, she's going off to hell. Like, she's going off into the void, probably never to be, typically with the void is they never have life ever again. I was like, this is really screwed up. And nobody knows that Masaki did this. Nobody knows this murderer in the hotel did this. They could probably assume at some point because he's killed before, but it's so screwed up. Like, when I watched that episode, I'm like, damn, this writer is willing to do some really dark stuff. This is really screwed up. Now, following this episode, we do kind of get Masaki kind of manipulating things again, and it's sort of showing signs to Neko, this guy's not a good guy, and he is manipulating things. but he sort of, bends it in a way that it seems like he's trying to help people. And the idea we have this stalker, she's in there with the guy that she was stalking. At first, we don't know this because they're just madly in love with each other. She's like, oh, you're the one that I love all the time. He's like, oh, you're my beloved. And eventually they start to get their memories back. They get their identities back. And he comes to find out, oh, no, this is my stalker. The one that before I was, in the state of almost death, she kidnapped my son and held him hostage. And as I was trying to save my son, we both fell in the water and I was drowning. And Masaki basically talks her into scarring him forever by making a mark in his memories by taking herself out in the hotel. It's just so warped. And I'm at this point now where I'm like, Neko, you have to get rid of this guy. Like, we have to get rid of this Masaki guy. He's super evil. And he's just, again, playing with people's souls, essentially, in the end. This isn't their lives. This is their souls. This is their future to ever be, again, either in the void or in life again. It's super twisted in that regard. It has me really hopeful for this show going forward. And this is why I was so driven to want to get on here and talk about it, is to kind of show people, look, this is great. Again, not to the levels of something like Death Parade, which if you have not watched Death Parade, it's an absolutely incredible show. Go watch it. But it's in that same vein, that mystery about what happens to you in that moment of life and death. Again, that moment of just before death, that you have that choice to make, and it can reflect on your future and where your soul goes, basically. That stuff is super interesting. Outside of that, the cast is pretty solid. Masaki, like I said before, super twisted guy. I want him dead. Especially after what he did to those poor kids. Kiriko is like this really weird, I don't know, monkey thing, badger thing that's like constantly trying to look into the world of the living with his telescope, which is kind of weird as well. The manager's okay, don't really care. Ruri's really cute. It seems like Neko's super obsessed with her. I'm kind of curious if they'll get eventually into the idea that she's probably one of those idols that Neko's obsessed with. She just doesn't recognize her yet. Haruto is one of the other guests there. I'm kind of curious if he'll end up being somebody that Neko knows in the past. It seems like he recognized Neko. And again, they have hinted that Neko has had a lot of misfortune in her life. I'm curious if he might be the guy that got in the car accident, that she doesn't recall who he is. So that might be why he recognizes her. There could be some good stuff they'll do there. Neko herself, I'm hoping, will be an interesting story in the end. This is based off of a game, and I'm kind of curious if this will end up adapting the entire game. But I'm hoping that Neko will have a really decent story to her. And yet maybe, I don't know, possibly, again, she's not necessarily a fan of idols, that she might have been a part of the idol group. It shows that she got stabbed or something, and that's why she's in this hotel. So that might be some tie-in with some jealousy there or something like that. Again, if she's an idol, possibly that a stalker stabbed her or something like that. I hope that they have a good story for her herself. But her character's great. I think, again, she's very mischievous looking, and she's got a lot of spunk to her character. But yeah, it's got me intrigued. I'm looking forward to more. But like I said before, even if it doesn't pan out, this is one of those cases where it's a show that nobody's paying attention to, that I'm super shocked by how much I'm enjoying it, and I'm eagerly looking forward to each episode and hoping it doesn't get back in that rut of, okay, again, a guest per episode. Because the mysteries around the actual guests themselves isn't like super intriguing. Like I said before, like with Masaki, I knew he was going to be the murderer. Like, he has this book full of a bunch of gruesome pictures, and he's like, oh yeah, that's for my, detective work that I do. Doubt. Doubt. Some nasty pictures, dude. Doubt. With the whole stalker lady, I'm like, I don't think these two are probably together. Sure enough, she's a stalker. They're okay mysteries, but they're not like ones that you're wanting to actively solve with it. It's just sort of well, here's the truth of it, and this is why all the puzzle pieces come together in the end. It's not like a super mystery thing. I'm sure the game's probably more about piecing all those puzzles together and then having like a choice at the end. But either way, they work to facilitate, again, the bigger mystery, which is what I'm intrigued by, is the mechanics of the hotel, how this dude is twisting it, and hoping that somebody stops him from twisting it, because it's messed up. Anyways, just want to get on here, let you guys know about this. Super, super into the show, enjoying it. It's a little gem in there that nobody's really kind of paying attention to, and I love bringing this stuff to light. So if you like this video, like being shown this show, give me a like down below, comment. Additionally, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe before you leave. If you like this content, you want to support channel more, I have links in the description below. Greatly appreciate it does. Until next time, y'all take care.